a small business cannot possibly do all of those channels.
My name's Peter Sumpton, and this is the Marketing Study Lab podcast. A podcast for those that are thinking, have thought and are doing, or already have a marketing qualification. But there's a little bit of something for everyone, as we cover a whole host of marketing topics. I chat to some amazing guests, each one a superstar in their own niche. And if you have a burning marketing question already, or after this episode, get in touch. We'll chat it through. peter@marketingstudylab.co.uk, or find me on LinkedIn. The link is in the show notes. If you'd like to leave a review on iTunes, this will really help others find this podcast and spread the marketing word. Now let's get on with today's episode. Who would you go to if you wanted to understand the importance of a marketing plan? We'll be chatting to just that person in a minute, and later on in the episode we'll also discuss what SOSTAC stands for. Spoiler alert, something to do with a marketing strategy. Right, back to our amazing guest this week, Janine Coombes. Janine is a marketer that helps small businesses develop and execute their own marketing plans with simple, easy to follow strategies. And Janine does this all in a lighthearted way that is infectious. Just check out her videos. So what we're going to discuss on this episode is, ta-da, marketing planning and strategies. So with all this planning and strategic development flying around in the air, I wanted to get straight down to it and ask Janine, when was the last time you failed to prepare?
Okay, so this is probably not the last time you failed to prepare, but the time I can remember that I failed to prepare quite dramatically was when I first did my online course that I ran before last summer. And everybody turned up for the first call. I'd never done a group training call before. I forgot to turn the sound off on my laptop so nobody could hear me. And I didn't understand why. So that went on for about 5 or 10 minutes. So that was hilarious. And halfway through, I'd forgotten to upgrade my Zoom. So it said that it was going to cut me off unless I paid then and there. So while people were talking, I had to pay for my Zoom upgrade. And that was cool. Which was stressful.
Yeah, I can imagine. I've had a similar experience where I was talking for 15 minutes, doing a screen share and talking about these slides and all that. And then after 15 minutes, somebody said, "Are we supposed to be looking at something here?" Like, yeah, you are. But we all go through it. It makes us stronger people.
Definitely, yes.
Okay, so on a more serious note, what's the story that's brought you to this stage of your career as, more than anything, a marketing campaign planner?
Okay, well, I feel like my early career was a bit of a conveyor belt. I, did my GCSEs, did my A levels, went to university, I chose a business degree because I wasn't too sure what I wanted to do, but marketing was what I found most interesting. So the final year was mainly marketing modules. Found a job in a local town as a marketing manager in my town where I grew up. So I did a year or so of that it was quite a small business, and then got, I suppose, what I felt like at the time was my big break, working for FreeServe, which not everybody will know if you're quite young. But FreeServe was the original kind of internet service provider before broadband, if you can imagine that. And that campaign planning was how it all worked, as far as I was concerned. That's how you got things done. There was yearly marketing strategies and plans, and they were broken down into smaller objectives, into targets, and we worked out what we could do to achieve those targets. And campaign planning was the answer. So I went through my career really thinking that was how everybody did marketing. It was only when I left big corporates about 8 years ago. I had my kids and I just thought I don't want to do the commute anymore. And I started investigating working for myself. But I saw that small businesses, it wasn't so much that they didn't know about marketing campaign. It was that what they are mainly being fed is that social media and blogging and advertising and leaflets, that is marketing, which took me a while to get my head around. I was like, why is this not working for small businesses? It's like, oh, they think that marketing communications is the entirety of marketing, and they're missing out all the bits that make marketing actually work. So that's why I became quite passionate about flying the marketing campaign planning flag.
So I just want to pick you up on one point there about marketing communications. Can you just explain, because it's one thing that when I'm tutoring or doing a one-to-one call, that we talk about the 4Ps or the 7Ps or the marketing mix, and as soon as you say that, people think communications. So could you just explain the difference between a marketing plan and marketing communications before we get into the actual breakdown of a marketing plan?
A wonderful visualization that I saw from Mark Ritson, who writes a lot for Marketing Week, I think it is. He had this slide that he shared, which kind of encapsulates how I think, what I think of marketing planning, which has three spheres or three circles. And it starts off with the strategy, the high level strategy. Where are you going? Why are you going? Who are you serving? What market are you in? How do you want to produce your products and services? How are you going to get it to market? What, really high level, long term thinking. In the middle is kind of how that translates into the tactics, which is the third circle. So the middle is where I kind of see the campaign planning being. It's breaking those big goals down into more manageable plans, shorter term plans. The third circle is where all the tactics are. And you get the 4Ps there. So he split this circle into 4. And of course, you can have extra Ps if you want to add in the service Ps. You've got the product, price, place, promotion. Then you've got the physical evidence, people, and process. And those questions, I don't think many people, the general public, think of as marketing. So things like pricing, what price are you going to charge? How are you actually going to serve the customer? That kind of thing. Who are you employing? Who's representing your brand? Promotion is so that's a small slice of that third pie, if you like. And promotion is where we get into marketing comms, and we're talking advertising, we're talking social media, what content you're producing. Are you doing blogs? Are you doing podcasting? Networking, conferences. Are you presenting at a conference? Have you hired a stand? That kind of thing. And it is what most people see when they step out their door, or even watching TV. It's what they see as people trying to sell you stuff or promote their business and their brand. But that's actually a very small end product of all the rest of the strategy. So a marketing plan starts with your big goals. How much do you want to earn this year? How much revenue do you want? How much profit do you want? What part of that can you affect with the marketing of your products and services, with how you develop your products? So, it goes down. Another example, product development. I don't think many people think of product development as part of marketing, but in my experience, it certainly is in the companies I work for. So the last company I worked for was EE, really big, well-developed, slick marketing department with hundreds of people, certainly 100 plus people in the marketing department. And we were responsible for a huge amount of the company's results, profit, loss, revenue, all that kind of thing. And it's how we broke that down, what products we produced, how we developed it, how we shaped it, how we dealt with our customers, that kind of thing.
Excellent. Great points there. So when you're talking to smaller businesses, the finances might not be massive. They might, like you say, be thinking of communications rather than a full marketing plan. What's the first thing you do when you start talking to them?
The first thing I do is ascertain whether they are clear on what they're selling to who and why. I want to know, do they have the fundamental strategy there? Do they have like their mission? Do they know what direction they're going in? So my ideal clients have been, it doesn't matter how long they've been set up, but they've kind of done that work already. They kind of know what they're selling to who and why. And without that, everything else is going to be a real battle.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly if you jump straight into the marcoms, you're going down a rabbit hole, because you can just pour all of your time and money down a rabbit hole and go nowhere because you haven't got the foundations right and you don't really know what you're selling to who. You're not being specific enough, you're not being focused, and you can waste a lot of time that way.
Sure. So when you go in, you're talking about ideal clients and products, how the two match, and where I suppose the unique selling points are, and everything like that. Then how are you building on that? So this is really getting to the in-depth sort of planning of it. But once you've found out the who and what they're actually selling, where do you go from there?
Yes. So say I've got a client as described, they know what they're doing, they've got their strategy sorted. I would dig into what their big goals are for the coming 12 months, try and work out so there's the money aspect, what will be something that would bring them the most profit or revenue, what they would enjoy delivering the most, so what's easiest to deliver, but also what's in line with what their customers are struggling with right now. And then we would select a marketing campaign from there. So they might have several things that they're selling all at once, or they might not really know how to narrow down what they're selling or which thing to focus on. And that's the criteria I usually use. So I would take one big goal perhaps, or one of the things that they're selling, and figure out what's the most logical, what's going to be easy for them to do, what's going to sell easily because their customers are struggling with that thing that their product or service addresses.
Okay, cool. So we've done that. They understand that. Then I suppose we're starting almost at the communication stage. What I want to know is or dependent on the budget, would that affect how you start to promote the products or services that a company offer? Or is it a case of looking at the various channels and balancing that budget that they've got?
Yeah, so the people I usually work with, it's more of a case of narrowing down which channels they're using rather than having a specific budget to allocate. I usually work with quite small businesses who are looking for low cost or no cost channels. So very simplistic. The plans we have, by the end of it, it's making sure that they've got their target audience really nailed, their offer really specific, their messaging that's going to really trigger the customers to start nodding their heads before we go into the channels. And then if it's a solopreneur and it's just them on their Todd without any support, I recommend just focusing on one or two channels. And usually that's free channels. So a lot of people I work with at the moment are online entrepreneurs, and we're talking, LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter, or maybe they've got a podcast or a blog or a YouTube channel. And it's how to use that more cleverly, more efficiently, and just tying in any other channels that they have. So if they go networking, if they regularly attend conferences, or if they do speaking engagements, if they have leaflets printed up, making sure that once they've got their campaign sorted, that every channel is echoing the same thing. So I'm not dealing with many people at the moment who have significant budgets to speak of.
Okay, in terms of the actual marketing plan, is there a particular model or theory that you like to implement more than any other? I'm talking more generically here.
I don't know whether I've got a favourite, but one that keeps cropping up recently when I'm looking into clients' plans is the Ansoff matrix.
Okay, cool.
I find it really easy, like an easy tool to show people, right, okay, so you want market penetration of this product, but you're also diversifying and you're also developing these few ranges. And when you put it in terms of a matrix, it shows them how thinly they're spreading their efforts, which is kind of contrary to what I'm trying to get them to do. If there's only one person in the business or two people, you need to be focusing your efforts on fewer things and doing them better. So I like that one at the moment.
Cool. So from what I'm understanding is that it's almost when you're going and you're talking to people, they've got this fear of missing out by not being on particular channels.
Oh yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Not everybody, but they have. It seems to be. I feel like the tables are turning slightly now, but for the last few years, it seems to be, oh, you're missing out if you're not on Instagram, or if you're on Instagram and it's not working, try Pinterest. If Pinterest isn't working, go back to Twitter. You're not using it right. Well, you should be using all of them. A small business cannot possibly do all of those channels well. And then the next logical thing seems to be, oh, maybe I should outsource. But if you can't brief the outsourcer properly, they're not going to be able to do any better job than you are. So there's several themes that crop up again and again. And my answer is, or my solution is usually just keep it simple, par it back. What do you enjoy using? Where are your customers? Focus on fewer things, do them better.
I was speaking to somebody the other day, and within their business, we were just discussing a few things. And have you tried this? Have you tried that? And I mentioned Facebook, and we were talking about Facebook groups. And the person turned around to me and goes, "Don't think that's going to work for our market." And I went, "Okay, can you explain?" And he went, "I'm not on Facebook, so I wouldn't know, but I don't think it's going to work." And I just like, "Oh God, no." You're not even, you're not even on the channel. So how can you even pass comment? And it might not have worked, but it was the point that you need to at least test these things, but don't spread yourself too thinly. So the question that I'm coming to is that for me that was almost a bad practice. The thought process. Do you come up against any bad practices that seem to be quite common in small businesses until you get involved, obviously?
I think the main one is just this leaping into the comms, which I don't blame them for. I think you set up your own small business and you just want to get going. You want to get cracking. And the first thing you do is set up all your social media profiles. And it's like a runaway train. It's hard to step off and see what you're doing. I mean, I did it myself, and I'm a marketer, and I know the theory, and I know that that you can have a solid strategy. But I did it myself. When I started setting up on my own a couple of years ago, I immediately set up all my social media platforms and started panicking that I didn't have, I wasn't blogging enough, and I wasn't doing, I didn't have a podcast, and my website wasn't snazzy enough, and all this sort of thing. And really, it doesn't matter. I know people who are making a very decent living without even a website, and we're talking technology companies here.
Wow.
You don't have to have all of these bells and bangles. You can do it really, really simply, as long as you're doing the right things, as long as you've got the strategy and your message is clear and you're being consistent and that kind of thing. So, there are other bad practices, but that's the biggie. That's the one that I see that's tripping most people up.
Yeah, and that goes back to what you were saying about understanding your ideal client, the content that they want, applying that in the right comms channels, and then you do the bit that they actually see.
Yeah.
In marketing at the moment, there seems to be this movement towards automation and a lot of communications being automated, and we talk about chatbots, etc., and things like that. I personally think it's almost cyclical, and we're coming round to this. Everybody wants personalization, but they want it to be actually personalized and not automated. Why do you think a marketing plan in its entirety couldn't just be automated? Going on a website, and I'm making this up, by the way, but there's a site that can automate it all for you.
Oh, I just think that concept is hysterical, really. I mean, I don't know. There's so much thinking that needs to go into a marketing plan. And a lot of it is emotional, especially if we're talking about small businesses. It's, many small business owners are doing it for emotional reasons, to work around members of the family that they're caring for. Could be kids, could be parents, could be partners, and your business has to work around that. so it's not even just purely the money aspect and how much you want to earn, but there's going to be loads of other more intangible goals that you want to hit with your small business, not to mention sort of brand awareness and softer, slightly harder to track metrics.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that all goes in, if you were able to put all that into a machine to work out your plan, still doesn't make any sense at all. I think the only thing you can automate, it's the end things. You can automate certain things, certain communications, but everything you put in it goes back almost to the outsourcing argument. You can't automate if you haven't worked out your exact strategy, and that really is what takes the time. So why are you automating? If it's to save time, you're not going to save that much time.
Yeah.
Because you have to think of all the strategy, and you have to really do the work on your ideal customer, and you have to do the market research, and you have to dig into what is exactly the message that's going to appeal to them. And then there's the testing, which again automation can help with, but you need to be checking in on and tweaking. I don't see how a computer could do that. You get A/B testing for emails, but that's such a small, tiny example compared to all the rest of the complicated machine you're building when you're putting together your marketing comms.
So one point you touched upon there was the metrics, and I suppose that's the end bit of a plan, monitoring and measuring.
Mm.
How do you go about understanding what the best metrics or information or data you should be compiling would be for a marketing plan?
Well, for the types of business I work with, it's quite easy because I keep it as simple as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So usually it's I need more sales. So we're putting together a campaign to get more sales of this specific thing. Are we getting more sales? Yes, no. I keep it really, really simple. So I try not to get bogged down in reach and engagement. I think that's nice to keep an eye on. If you've got a main channel, you can gauge, okay, this post isn't getting as much reach as that post. But there's so many variables. If you've got a sales post and it doesn't get as much reach as a completely random anecdote about your kids, does that mean that all you should ever post about is your kids? No, it doesn't, because you need to get the sales in at some point. So I try and keep it really simple, especially for people who that's not how they've been functioning up until now. I don't want the metrics to put them off.
Yeah.
So it's usually about, is it profit? Is it revenue? Is it sales? What is the number goal you're going for? And let's focus on that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always about keeping it simple. And just to go back on a previous point you were talking about there, when you're applying the metrics, it's important to understand each part of the customer journey, not the end point as well. Because like you were saying, there's that sale, that end goal. But I suppose as a marketer, we're also interested in where that's come from. And it might be there's one channel that's hemorrhaging you a lot of money, but you won't know that until you've actually applied some kind of method of evaluating it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it depends on what you're selling. But when you get into more complicated sales funnels and things, you want to know where people are dropping out of the process of, you want to be moving them along towards a sale. Where are they dropping out of the process? But also I like, when I'm working with somebody one-to-one, I like to keep an eye on what is causing them the most hassle. So you mentioned something, you touched on this with what you just said there, is if you are spending, 90% of your time and energy on one aspect of the sales funnel, and it's not representing 90% of your revenue, then something's wrong. So, I mean, that's another aspect of something that's very difficult to identify purely by numbers without kind of having a look at the energy you're putting in. So it might not represent a numerical budget number, but that what you were in effect wasting your time on this channel. So say, for a random example, you're blogging every day. You're spending 3 hours a day blogging, and you can't prove that it's actually bringing you any sales at all. Well, perhaps try not blogging for a while and put that energy into engaging more on social media, or doing more networking, or doing something that you know is working.
Before we move on to your LinkedIn profile, which I want to kind of finish these questions on, how important is content?
It depends on what you want to achieve.
Okay.
That's a marketer's response, isn't it? It depends on what you would achieve. So I think it's not a must-have. I think it's there. You can use it. It is effectively free to create many content channels, and it can be fabulous for raising your profile and establishing your brand and working through your own strategy as well. It kind of solidifies your own strategy in your own mind. But I don't think it's essential for any business. So there.
I wasn't expecting that answer. So moving on to your own content and your own LinkedIn channel. Do we call it channels? Profiles? Content. It's very unique, and if you haven't seen it, check it out. So the content that I'm talking about is when you introduce characters into the videos that you're posting. What's the thought behind that, and where have they come from?
Oh, I'm losing you. You've turned into a Dalek.
Oh, okay. Where did we get to?
I think you were starting to ask me about my LinkedIn content, and then you started just sounding a bit cutting in and out.
Okay. So moving on to your LinkedIn content. If people haven't seen it, I suggest they check it out. And what I'm talking about more specifically are the videos, and you've introduced different characters into your content. Can you explain why and what they're actually providing?
Oh dear. I would love to say that it was a strategic decision.
Okay.
But actually, do you want the story of why I did it?
Too right.
I can keep it brief. So a friend of mine is a LinkedIn trainer, and somebody had watched some of her videos and said, look, we do video training, we could give you some objective feedback. And she said, oh, go on then, if it's free. And most of the feedback was on how she looked and how she sounded. They said that she didn't look, she's 36, but they said, you don't look old enough, so people aren't going to listen to what you're saying. You need to wear more makeup, wear different clothes, lower your voice because you sound like a primary school teacher.
Wow.
And perhaps wear some pearls to make you look older. Which her response was to share this in a very mature way on a video on LinkedIn, and just said, what do you think? Because I feel like this is not quite right, but let's have a discussion. My response was to do a spoof video of me dressing up, although I am significantly older than 36, but dressing up in posh clothes and pearls and lots of makeup and putting on a silly accent. And that was the first time I've been really silly on a LinkedIn video. And it went down a storm, and once you pop, you can't stop, basically. And from then on, my videos have been wacky. And what I do is I tend to take analogies that people discuss or use to prove a certain point, and then I try to bring them to life in the video. And they go in better. They're easier to watch. They're more fun to watch. It represents my brand, because my brand is kind of fun and colourful. I like a laugh. So it puts off people if you want somebody suited and booted and is going to be very, very serious. There are people for you, but I'm probably not that person. So it's a great Marmite strategy, in effect, and it's attracting the right people to me. So ironically, having said content is not essential, it's been fabulous for me.
but I think on that, it's about what you just said there, the right content for your brand.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because if you were dry and dull and didn't wear pearls, then people would expect you to be very corporate, very formal. And when you came in and you were bouncy and bubbly and liked a bit of a laugh, it just wouldn't fit.
No.
So hats off to you for the content you produce on there. It gives people a giggle, yet there's that underlying theme and you get it straight away, which is just fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
And
I really enjoy doing it. I love it.
can I just say, when you said wearing pearls to make yourself look older, I wish I knew that when I was 16, 17 going out of a night, because that's a no-brainer, isn't it, really?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, everybody should have a set of pearls if they're trying to look older.
Okay, are you ready for some quick fire questions before we completely lose everybody?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, name one must-read business book.
Mindset by Carol Dweck.
What was the last thing you Googled?
The Hampton Court Palace Easter Bunny Trail.
Oh, that sounds excellent.
It was awesome.
What is your most used app at the moment?
Tesco Delivery.
Oh, superb. What is your favourite theory, concept, or methodology?
Well, I've mentioned Ansoff Matrix, so I might just say the no like trust factor.
Excellent. What would be a one tip for people who are studying at the moment?
I think this is a tricky one, but if you can find the curiosity in what you're learning, it will make everything much easier.
Oh, love that. Brilliant. Final quickfire question. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, or threats?
Are you talking, for me, what is my strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats?
No, just which one you prefer.
Oh, what strengths?
Cool. That's excellent. Janine, one final question before I thank you so much for coming on today. And that is, if people want to get in touch with you, know more about you, where should they go?
I live on LinkedIn, so look me up on LinkedIn, just / Janine Coombes. I do have a YouTube channel with all my videos on, which is youtube.com /C / Janine Coombes. Message me on LinkedIn if you want to chat.
Fantastic, Janine. Absolute pleasure talking to you today. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks, Peter, just for that.
Thanks once again, Janine, for joining us and taking the time to join us on Marketing Study Lab. But what are the main takeaways from all that wealth of knowledge that Janine imparted on us in this episode? Well, the first one is that so many people mistake marketing communications for a full marketing mix. As Janine pointed out, the communications part of a marketing mix is just one element, and although vital, this is a step that comes after all the planning, setting objectives, and the strategic direction stages of a marketing strategy. Without these, it's impossible to know who your communications are aimed at and which channels these comms should be designed for, let alone the overall direction of the organisation. And who doesn't want to know that overall direction? It'd be madness not to understand that. Have you ever heard of Ansoff's Matrix? No? Check it out. Although it was originally designed in 1957 and published in the Harvard Review, it still holds relevance in today's marketing planning. It helps to highlight the strategic direction a company should or could take and the risks that come with this change in direction. Janine also uses this model to highlight where a company may be spreading themselves a little too thin and potentially pulling in different strategic directions with no strong singular vision, which is an excellent use of this model. And finally, Janine's own style of comms. Janine uses LinkedIn and YouTube to provide followers with a unique and true to her own personal brand style of video, using characters to describe certain aspects of marketing, aspects that Janine herself is an expert in, but she does it in her own way. This would only be successful, however, if the comms matches the person or business style, and Janine certainly does that. Imagine turning up to a meeting that you thought was going to be formal, shirt, tie, maybe a three-piece if you're feeling fancy, and that's due to the messages you've been receiving. to only find out that it's a much more relaxed and carefree culture. Maybe shorts and flip-flops. The two wouldn't match. A false impression has been given in the messages portrayed, and trust between you and that organisation would possibly be lost almost forever, potentially forever. Not a great start to a relationship. And now on to the top tip this week, which is SOSTAC. And this is my favourite marketing model. Yep, I've got a favourite marketing model. I am that geeky. I was fortunate to chat with the creator, PR Smith, in episode 10 of Marketing Study Lab. Check it out. PR Smith, in that episode, described how it has been used, this model, SOSTAC, for planning, strategic marketing strategies, as well as other large projects, including, believe it or not, a wedding. So, why is it my favourite? Well, it's quite simple, really. It's because it's simple, versatile, and provides a complete vision for the now, the future, and how to get there. Who doesn't love that? So very briefly, let's have a look how it works. Situation analysis. The where are we now? A review of the internal and the external environments, so you know exactly where you fit within the wider market, what impacts and influences are affecting you, and how internal aspects are shaping the organisation. Objectives. Where you want to go. Now you know your situation, it's time to set some objectives in terms of where you want to be. This can be as long and as short as it needs to be. Think 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, even 10 years. Bear in mind, these objectives may change, but we'll get to that later. Strategy. The strategy is the overall direction that you need to go to meet your objectives. Think about this like taking a road trip. You know where you want to go. You want to go from A to B. The strategy will tell you how you will get there without the specifics. For example, taking a train, driving, getting a taxi, etc. Tactics. Sticking with the car analogy, it's the tactics that will specifically describe how you will get from A to B, how you will do that journey. Take this road, then that road, the train leaves at such a time and your seat number's this, the taxi's booked, your driver's Dave, he's just round the corner. Well, Uber solved that problem, didn't it? Now these tactics should also include your marketing mix, the 4Ps, 7Ps, 8Ps, 24Ps, however many Ps there are in marketing now. We've already discussed this. And as we found out, it's different from your marketing communications, which is only one part of the mix. Now on to actions. It's time to take action. And this describes the who, the what, the when, usually within a Gantt chart or similar. Think of this as your map en route, telling you when to turn left, to stop, or even get some petrol if required. And finally, control. The part of your strategy that makes sure you're on course to achieve your objectives, to get to that end point. The control part will monitor the tactics, the actions, highlighting if there's any issues or problems that means a change in strategic direction in order to achieve the objective set is needed. It could even mean a change in objective due to the circumstances that might be out of your control, and this is where your situation analysis may need to be reviewed. Think of this as your sat-nav, highlighting roadblocks, delays, and of course, speed cameras. Thank you so much for joining us today on Marketing Study Lab. It really means the world that you're listening to this out there, and hopefully I've provided you some value. If you're looking to know more about what Marketing Study Lab does and is about, go to marketingstudylab.co.uk or get in touch with me personally, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, or feel free to email me at peter@marketingstudylab.co.uk. Happy marketing.